Welcome to the Vigor Life Podcast, a source of inspiration, lessons, stories, skill sets, mindsets, and strategies to invigorate and expand all areas of your life. Let's go. What's going on? Coach Luka back here with the Vigor Life Podcast. Today's episode, I always say this one is going to be a little bit shorter, and sometimes it doesn't turn out that way because, I just start going deep into the whatever I was going to talk about. But one of the, I wanted to bring up, I talk a lot about the things that I study, the things that I read, the mentoring that I get and things of that nature, because that's usually what spurs certain conversations. I'd say the last 12 months, one of my main things that I've been studying a lot about is leadership communication, building teams. And I really don't think that you can get too good at this, okay? I don't think that it's kind of like anything else, the mastery of the craft, right? Been in the fitness industry coaching for close to a decade and a half. And, we just had Dr. Stuart McGill and Brian Carroll out here for the Gift of Injury seminar. And it's just I'm constantly learning new things or seeing a different perspective or getting a new tool for the toolbox of coaching. So it never ends. Now, if you're in a position of being a leader, and we've talked about this before, where I believe, everybody can behave and act as a leader no matter where you are. But if you're running a business, if you're running an organization, if you're running a team, certainly this is something that you have to step into, or, probably you're not going to get far as building teams. I mean, that's just the reality of it. I've gone so kind of thrown myself into this leadership role because I've had a feeling, oh man, I'm not doing good enough. I could be better. And of course, and I can be, and I believe everybody can continue to get better. But really taking this on and reading a ton of books, doing a ton of courses on this. But one of my favorites, people say, if I could read one book, and there's probably about 4 or 5 that I'm a huge fan of. But today I'm gonna talk about lessons from one, and it's called Legacy. It's the lessons from the All Blacks, right, for leadership, for life, off the field. Not just on the field. And of course, I'm very pulled to sports, right, and successful sports teams. And, as far as a sports team, the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team have won 70% of their matches since they started in 1903. So that's a pretty crazy statistic. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the most successful team in the history of team sport. So, obviously somebody to learn from. Another thing too is that how did I get attracted to rugby and All Blacks is that my oldest brother has been playing rugby majority of his life. He's the longest standing team captain of the Slovenian National Rugby Team, which is, Slovenian National Rugby Team is not at the highest levels of rugby, but they're still, put it this way, considering the resources and considering, that Slovenia is not a rugby nation, they've done pretty well. And my brother, and I give a lot of respect to him. He takes a lot of his holiday days in Europe, that's because they're holidays, to play for the national team. So he's a bit of a legend there. And so that's how I used to go to his rugby games. I used to be a huge fan of Jonah Lomu. I don't know if anybody knows Jonah Lomu. He was an absolute monster. You can go look him up. But that's how I got really intrigued into it, and intrigued by it, and was really big fan of, I had New Zealand All Black jerseys, and, was doing the Haka, and man, I love that stuff. But it wasn't until actually, now years and years ago that I read the book Legacy for the first time and kind of dove into the deeper, their culture and these, I would say, these virtues that they live by. So rather than going through all 15, I wanted to touch on the 5 that have been maybe some of the most impactful for me, and ones that I think will help you be successful and be off the field. And there's one specific one that's actually the last one I want to share, that I want to dig into the micro and macro level of what it means. And if you do that in life, You'll be more fulfilled. You'll be happier. You'll lead teams better, and you'll have more success and get more of what you want. And I can promise you that. But while it's maybe simple, it is not easy to do. So with that said, the 5 different lessons from the All Blacks that let's just say, it's a guide to being successful on and off the field, but we're going to focus more off the field in life and in business. And the first one is, it's called sweep the sheds. And the thing is, some of these virtues, like other, you may have them, or you may have heard companies have them. They're just named something different. They say it differently. But I'm going to keep it intact from the book Legacy. So sweeping the sheds. So before the All Blacks leave the dressing room at the end of the game, some of the most famous names in rugby are Richie McCaw, Dan Carter, Mills Muliana, which you guys may not know, but they're big time. They stop and they clean up after themselves, right? They literally and figuratively sweep the sheds, right? So meaning cleaning the locker room. That would be another phrase for it, right? And it basically is an example of personal humility, right? Which is a cardinal All Blacks value. And though it might seem strange, for a team of imperious dominance, humility, it's core to their culture, right? The All Blacks believe that it's impossible to achieve stratospheric success without having your feet planted firmly on the ground. And I can look back and say, the times that you think like you're too good for shit like that, that's the time where, like I said, humility is lost. Now, that does not mean, okay, first of all, when you're a business owner, because some people go like, well, Luka, like, you're not going to clean the toilets if you're and da-da-da. And the thing is like, no, of course, you outsource that, especially there comes a point in time where, spending time on that is far from the best use of your time. But, I mean, if you had to, you would, number one. Number two is, at the beginning, you're doing those things and you're never too good to do those things. While for me, I still, vacuum the turf if I see that it's not looking right. Put away the weights and clean them up, because you respect, the gym, you respect the team, you respect the clients. And so that's what's so important. This is like, it's bigger than just sweeping the sheds, because that action just reinforces the humility, right? You can never become too big to do the little things. And, in business, that's, we live in a world of social media right now where it's like somebody has, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of millions of followers, and you start, I don't know, believing your own hype and, acting a different way. This is like I would say one of the main things to remember, man, to stay humble. Yes, cliche, so cliche, absolutely. I mean, of course you hear it, like humble and hungry, humble hustle, so on and so forth. But, to live that every single day is very important. And then it's like, what is the thing that triggers this virtue in you? So for them, it's cleaning the sheds. It truly is like, hey, clean the locker room. Nobody's going to come in and clean the locker room. We're going to do it ourselves. And just remind us, like, where we come from. Remind us about the little things, the important things, the respect that you have for that jersey, the respect you have for your teammates, the respect you have and the honor you have for playing on this team. And like I said, that could be for, playing on your company, in your company. And I've heard actually like a week ago, somebody said, well, shit, like, man, like, I work for this bigger company. Like, they don't care about me. And the thing is, I a lot of times say it's not even about them. It's about you. It's about what do you believe in, right? It's about your own personal values and virtues, because it's a slippery slope, right? You might be somewhere where you're like, oh, well, all these people don't have my back and da-da-da. And then you stop doing the things that you say are your values and virtues. And then what ends up happening is over time, you start losing that. You start losing it. Because you're not applying it, you're not living it. That's not the behavior you do every day, right? Because you start going like, well, I do it here, but I don't do it here. Well, that's not integrity, right? And like, look, I'll be the first to say that I've dropped the ball a lot of times on that, right? And like, until the universe didn't give me a, 5 fingers to the face, Rick James slap, I didn't learn the lesson. And so, sweep the sheds, be humble, and like, think about in your own life where you can instill something that reminds you of that. So there's a behavior that can be a trigger to you doing that. whether it is every night, spending 5 to 10 minutes before you leave, if you're a gym owner, looking around, man, is that clean enough? Is that in the right place? And without pointing fingers, right? I'm not diving deeper into if shit's always all over the place, that you just keep cleaning gym all yourself. Like then that means there's a deeper cultural problem. But what I'm saying is, like, it's got to start with you too, because let's look at this whole leadership perspective from this first lesson. And this is, like I said, this is another thing that, like, I can speak from, that I've messed up on, where I'm like, man, listen, guys, we got to do this and we got to do that, like, to be winners and champions, and that, and then I'm not doing one of those things that I talk about. And, like, if people are watching me, automatically it's kind of like the kid and the parent, right? I mean, parent goes, man, 2 weeks ago I was sitting down with somebody and they go, man, I just want to be the best example for my kids. And then as we go into it, I want them to eat healthy better than me. And I'm like, hey, listen, number one is, like, you got to do that. Like, you can tell them whatever you want. Like, if they're watching you not eat right, or should I say eat healthy, eat in line with your goals, I mean, right? Then that's what they see. This is their reality, not what you tell them. So it's the same thing when it comes to these behaviors. Like, for instance, man, we got to treat the clients right. You got to do right by the clients. You got to go above and beyond. And, you got it in a manual. It's written down in a checklist. You bring in a specialist, and a culture specialist and a customer service specialist. And yet you're the person that's leading, and you're the person that's not exhibiting these behaviors. Man, that's, like, we could talk about this all day long and be like, sweep the sheds, do this, and you're like, yeah, man, let's do a team meeting. Let's, you got to live it. Like, you got to live it. That's at the foundation of it all. And that is a big part of it, right? They do it because it's literally like entrenching this belief and behavior by them cleaning the sheds themselves, so that it creates humility. It's a trigger to remind you, right? To remind you. It's almost something like, what, you get to do this. Right? You have the honor of doing this. The second lesson is follow the spearhead. So in Maori, Wanao means extended family. It's symbolized by the spearhead. Actually, this is really, like, I could get emotional actually talking about this, because it's such a big part of my life. You talk about there's blood family, and then there's family of choice, teams of choice, people of choice, right? And just understanding how powerful that is, obviously who you surround yourself with, and how much they can help your life, both from fulfillment and joy, but also in challenging you, pushing you to be your best self. So think about this. Though a spearhead has 3 tips to be effective, all of its force must move in one direction. The All Blacks have this mantra, say no dickheads. So it's like, no people that are, like, I would say, have, let's just call it negative energy, right? And they select on character as well as talent, which, of course, like, you there's got to be talent if you want to have the best in the world. But there's a lot of the greatest players that don't play for the All Blacks, and that's why. Okay, that's why, because they don't have the character that they're looking for, right? And like I said, some of New Zealand's most promising players never put on that black jersey, right? Because they're considered dickheads, right? And their inclusion would be detrimental to the Wanao. So, and remember, so here's the whole premise of follow the spearhead. The spear can pierce the most, I would say, it would create the most damage and move the furthest when all of its points, all of its force is put into that single direction, right? And what that means is, like, hey, look, if we get everybody moving in the same direction, if we have that spear moving with force into that singular point, and that's the vision, those are the values, that's the character. Like, if we do that, it can't be stopped. Right, so that's what that means in following the spearhead. If you get everybody on the same page, if you get everybody on the page of, like, hey, here's our vision. If we get there, you win, we win, everybody wins for the good of all, and we're following these virtues, these characters, right, and living in integrity, then we can't be stopped. right? And of course, what does that mean? If we are doing that, then we're an extended family, right? Which is what that means in Maori. So think about that, like following the spearhead. Now, of course, there's a lot of methods, and many times in a podcast, I'll share some of these. Like I said, the actual methods and strategies of leadership. But we got to also think, bigger picture and then go down into the details of it. Okay. Number 3 lesson. Champions do extra. And honestly, this is one of the mantras that helped them become one of the most successful teams in history. So this philosophy simply means finding, because a lot of people might think, actually they do, it's like, champions do extra, that it's this crazy, out there pushing on a daily basis. But the truth is incremental ways to do more in the gym, on the field, for the team, and then if you think about it, this can go to for the family, in your business, in your community, in charitable organizations, right? Like champions do extra. And a focus on continual improvement, the creation of a continual learning environment, and the willingness to spill blood. And I love this. Like, I mean, it sounds like kind of hard, but yes, the willingness to spill blood for the jersey is at the core. Now, replace the jersey. Like, listen, you're on a team. Your family's a team. That's your jersey. Your business, or the business that you're part of, a team, that's your jersey. A philanthropic organization that you help out, that's your jersey, right? And do you spill blood for that team? And if you don't, it's kind of like, I am in the belief of like, if that's not really like what you want to do, man, then maybe it's not the best team for you, right? No judgment. It just might not be the right team. And so, doing extra, and I've shared this so many times before, because like, man, I like saying stuff over and over, even in the gym, and telling stories from different perspectives so that they get ingrained with our members and our team, and myself too, right? I tell stories to myself. To be extraordinary, you have to do the extra. That's the difference, right? But the kicker is that like it's not like 50% more on a daily basis. People say these crazy numbers, right? You got to do, I give 200%. No, it's doing a little more. And remember, like, you look at the science of developing skills, right? There's kind of like this chart, and for people, if somebody doesn't challenge your skill set, you become bored, right? If it's too easy, you get bored. Now, if it's too hard, you become overwhelmed and discouraged and stressed out. But there's just the right amount, like just the right amount of pushing you past what you can do. That's actually exciting. You get in the flow. That's where you develop the best skills. And different, studies, different books have said it, somewhere about 4, 5, 6, 7%. That's it, right? 4 to 5%. So not too hard, but just a little bit over that. But the thing is, if you're doing that consistently over time, but I mean, even now, like I said, we have one of our values here at Vigor is like 1% better every day. And once again, this is a philosophy, right? Because it seems small, because people like saying our business has grown 250% in the last 3 months, and you get all these crazy promises and shit like that. But the 1% better every day, like, it just compounds. And so that's the whole point. Like, champions do extra, right? Man, I used to stay and like do a couple hundred shots after practice. I'd be a little bit early and do like ball handling drills, right? Like, but it wasn't the fact that I showed up once every week or, a couple times a month extra. No, it was like I would do that every single day. And it wasn't like, I mean, there was periods of time I was a little crazy and do too much and too many hours, but it was the incremental, right? It's the day in, the day out, that years later, like, you're getting thousands and thousands and thousands of more, shots and makes and quality ball handling drills in. Or, when it came to business, it was just like, man, every single day I'm like, oh, I'm not as great at sales as I can be. Okay, cool. I'm going to study it an hour every single day for years. And marketing, an hour every single day for years. Coaching, I would say anatomy, kinesiology, biomechanics for hours, right? Like, but it's the extra. It's the extra. Champions do extra. And you got to check yourself. I mean, you got to check yourself as far as like, that's just one of the, I mean, I like the thing is somebody is going to check you, but it's like, sometimes the economy checks you. Sometimes, you know, you start, for instance, I remember going into the NBA Summer Pro League in 2004 or 5, and getting there and going through the tryouts. And there's like over 500 players and only 24 spots. And that's the 2 free agent teams. And, you know, you get 2 games. That's it. You get 2 games and they give equal time. So nobody plays the whole game. You get 2 quarters. So like if I played the first quarter and the third quarter, actually, I think I played the second and the fourth quarter of both of those games, because everybody's got to get the same chance, right? And I did great the first game. I think probably the first game got me. I had 17 points and a half. Went like 6 for 8 shooting, hit all my free throws. You know, Sean Rooks came up to me after the game. He's like, man, you got an NBA body. Like, I love your game. You know, marks me down. I'm like, oh man, yes. And later, my second game, I played pretty good. It wasn't phenomenal, but it was enough to get me into the NBA, Southern California NBA Summer Pro League, which I think was the last or the second to last year that it was in Long Beach. It doesn't exist anymore. Now everything's Vegas and Denver. And I played for Team Slam, and I mean, a great experience, incredible experience. But it was also like, you know, now I'm, you know, and you're not really, here's the thing, it's not like a crazy amount of team ball, because you get about a week to play with your team, like practice with your team, and boom, then you're playing the league. And so, but the kicker is that, like, I wanted to reel back the story that, man, like, everything was faster, everybody was stronger, everybody jumped higher, everybody made more open shots, right? It was a reality check of like, oh shit, right? It's just another level, okay? And the thing is that it just like that was a reality check for me. So was, you know, business, where the economy doesn't do well, where you grow and you're like, oh man, everything's going to be great, we're going to keep rolling, right? That stuff is not like, you're going to get checked. You're going to get checked. So make sure, you know, it's like, are you doing the extra? Are you really doing the extra, right? Ask yourself that. And man, that's why it's important to study people that have been very successful, teams, businesses, leaders, athletes, so on and so forth, right? To see, to be able to say like, man, that's the standard, right? That's the standard. We had a team meeting last week. There was a big team meeting for us, and one of the things, and not to go too deep into it, because it was actually a big meeting for us that to me mattered a lot, and I feel like it's going to be a catalyst for a lot of good things. But one of the things that we talked about was setting standards to be an A player, right? Because we all agreed that to be to go where we want to go and be the best gym in the world, be the best coaches in the world, we have to be, there has to only be A players and A+ players on the bus. And then as a team, we determined these standards, right? And the thing is, like, what are the standards? Like, we got to determine like the highest level standards of excellence. And the reality check then becomes like, oh shit, like, as a team, are we actually consistently achieving these standards? Right? You got to have something, because, and that's harsh. It's hard to do because, it's hard to go like, man, like, I'm not living up to, like, I say I want these things, but I'm really not like living up to the standards and executing at a level that would say that, man, this is A player. This is A+ player status. You know what I mean? And so, man, learn like that. That's why like success leaves clues, but learn from the best of the best, see what they're doing. Like, I love studying that stuff because sometimes it's a reality check. Like, man, I'm like in this area that I say that I want to be better, maybe I'm not doing enough. I'm just not. That's just a reality check. And then it's like, am I committed to this? And if I am committed to this, man, I'm gonna do it. Lesson number 4, keep a blue head. And I don't know if like I said, if you follow rugby, the All Blacks in 2003, because they had I would say a big culture kind of collapse, and then they rebuilt the team. But following their arguably premature exit in the 2003 World Cup, they actually All Blacks worked with a forensic psychiatrist, Sari Evans, to understand how the brain works under pressure. So they wanted to overcome their habit of choking, because, like I said, there was this phase where they were choking. and especially in like big plays coming down to the end of the game. And so they termed it redhead, right? And redhead is an unresourceful state in which you're off task, you're panicked, and then you're ineffective. But bluehead, on the other hand, is an optimal state in which you're on task and performing to your best ability. Okay, so the All Blacks use triggers to switch from red to blue. So Richie McCall, coach, one of the players stamps his feet. Like that's his cue, right? That's his cue to go from redhead. Because remember, like you're gonna get into situations where you panic, where you get emotional. I mean, shit, on a daily basis. If like, you know, the week before last, there was like stuff happening. I was like, man, like, you know, a bit of a panic attack, like code red, redhead, right? And now I have my own ways to go from red to blue. Like I said, one of the players stomps his feet, like literally grounding himself. That's his trigger. That's his cue. Remember, we talked about, you know, motion creates emotion. Another one stares at the furthest point of the stadium, searching for the bigger picture, right? Everybody's got their thing, but they recognize that, man, I'm in redhead state right now. I got to get to bluehead, right? And in using these triggers, the players aim to achieve clarity and accuracy so they can perform under pressure. Now, the thing is about this is that, you know, those things have to be trained, okay? They have to be trained. You have to be able to train under pressure, right? I mean, you think about like training, physical training. And you want to be like, it's always like there's preparation and then there's demonstration, or should I say there's adaptation and then there's demonstration. Demonstration is like when you're actually playing. Adaptation is practice. That's actually one of the big problems, which I'm not going to dig into in fitness, is that people train as if they're like demonstrating all the time, meaning you're trying to hit PRs too often. You're always taking it to the brink. You're always pushing yourself to the edge and going, and you know, and going like, man, like this is, you know, I'm always pushing it so I can be prepared. And it's like you're actually breaking yourself down and destroying yourself. So there's adaptation. So that means you're training for the adaptation, and demonstration is like when you're actually playing, when you have to perform, when you have to show, you know, what you trained for. But it's the same thing when it comes to, you know, practicing, like what happens when you get a red head, right? When you get overwhelmed, when you get stressed, when you get panicked, what are the things that you do to get you back into, you know, like focus on your main task, your main goal? What are you committed to? And blocking out everything else, right? I've said it before, you know, listen to yourself less and talk to yourself more. Because when you start getting a red head, right, like you get an emotional state and you're allowing your emotions to drive your behavior, right? And usually those emotions are coming from, I would say, that voice in your head. You're not good enough. You're going to fail, like whatever it may be. I mean, sometimes it may be like, you know, overconfidence, right? But like when really you just need to be like, there's trained and untrained, right? Do what you're trained for. This is your mission. This is your vision, right? Here's what you're going to do. So there's a lot of ways to do that. I've actually talked about a number of them in the past, about the podcast I did about pattern interrupts. Those are triggers, right? Pattern interrupts are triggers. And honestly, like everybody finds their own. Like, just like I mentioned, the two players that have a little bit of a different kind of strategy, you know, you can find your own strategy too. And the last one out of these 5 lessons, and the one that I'm going to kind of do a micro and macro from, is leaving the jersey in a better place than when you found it, right? And the All Blacks have long had a saying, leave the jersey in a better place. Their task is to represent all those who have come before them, right? The legends, okay? And all those who will follow. An All Black is by definition a role model to school children across New Zealand, right? It's such a, I would say, important role. It's such a, I would say, such an honor to be able to wear the jersey, right? And understanding this responsibility creates a compelling sense of higher purpose, right? And it's a good lesson for all of us. Like, if we play a bigger game, we play a more effective game. What I mean by if we play a bigger game, it means like if you understand, like the bigger the responsibility, we're usually going to make it more effective. If you give an anchor to it, if it matters more, okay? And they said, man, better people make better All Blacks. But they also make better doctors, lawyers, bankers, coaches, gym owners, businessmen, fathers, brothers, and friends. Right? Better people make better All Blacks. And I say better people make better coaches. Better people make better leaders. Right? Now, let me zoom out of this a little bit. Like, how does this look like for me? Because they said I'm going to spend a little more time on this one. I actually was going to initially just do a podcast just on this. But I felt like there was 5 lessons that I really wanted to share. But my dad said, you know, leave whatever you leave. I'm getting stuck on my words, but whenever you basically, because I'm thinking in Slovenian in my head of what he said. I'm not going to say it out loud because you guys would be like, what the hell? I don't have subtitles on this. But leave things better than you found them, right? Now, and also, he also said, like, if you break shit, then fix it, make it right. And so I'm going to talk about that as well. At the macro level, right? At the macro level, that's like the big picture stuff, right? For instance, let's zoom into this All Blacks situation where they say, hey, look, if somebody plays for the national team for like 5, 6, 7 years or whatever, right? It's this philosophy of like, man, I'm going to work hard to leave this jersey better than it was. Like the people before worked hard to and now gave me this responsibility. Now I'm going to take this very seriously and work hard to be a better human so I can be a better All Black, so I can leave this jersey better than what it was. Replace that with like, I came into a company, right? And I didn't own a company, but I came into a company and I worked my ass off to leave that company and everybody that was there better than it was before I got there. That's the macro picture. And think of like that for a team. Like if you were part of a team, if you're part of an organization, a charity or whatever, right? But now let's go to the micro level. And this is kind of like what I do on a daily basis. And I think about this. If I meet a person for the first time, can they leave better than who they were than when they met me? And that could be a really simple thing. It doesn't have to be something crazy profound, but maybe I made them laugh. Maybe I made them smile. Maybe I shared a lesson with them. Maybe I taught them something. Many times my goal is to add value to their life and their day. And I might not even see them again, right? Do I always succeed in this? No. Am I always so focused and zone in that I never miss a beat? No. But that's why my goal is to continue to do and improve like for forever. And so with that said, you know, leaving the jersey in a better place than when you found it, when you put it on, applies to literally every single thing. You had a team meeting. Hey, did you contribute and leave that team meeting better than if you weren't there? You met with somebody for the first time. Like, did that experience, whether it was joy, laughter, fun, knowledge, insight, sometimes maybe a painful insight, but that later on led to something positive for them, right? Did you help do that? Did you join a campaign and help out a charity? And was it better because you were there? Are you part of a company? And like, this is a big one too, because, you know, this is not about like, oh, if you're a gym owner or a business owner or anything like that, because that's kind of like a lot of times where, you know, things go wrong because it's like, well, they don't care about me, or I'm only here to go to the next step anyways. I don't care, right? But that's the problem. Like you can grow the most when you have this mindset of leaving things better than you found them, and not burning bridges. But having people go like, man, like that person really was like a huge, like they learned a ton. They were a great person. They made everybody better. They added a lot, you know, and then maybe they moved on. Sure, but like. See, if you have that approach, you won't burn bridges. People will see you as a valuable asset and a linchpin, but also you'll get the most out of it, right? So this is like a huge, huge, huge value, and like, or said in a virtue that I would highly encourage you to like follow and have written down somewhere and think about, because once again, if you do that day in and day out, right? And going back to that Zig Ziglar saying, right? If you help people get what they want, you'll always get what you want, right? I mean, it really comes down to that. And if people are like, man, like that person always made us better, made us happier, made us laugh more, provided more value, created things that everybody benefited from, right? And if you think you start at a micro level, and then obviously if you do that on a micro daily level, every interaction you have, everything that you do, then of course it's gonna kind of rub off and create that macro level, meaning, you know, years later, right? Because most people think about like, oh, when I leave this company 3 years later or whatever, or when I go to the next thing, but that happens on a daily basis. So that's when you got to think about it, right? And to me, it's like I wear the jersey of, you know, Team Vigor Ground every day, of Team Hocevar Family every day, of you know, team, our group of friends, right? That's my team, like my closest friends, right? And so same thing with, you know, team like Vigor Dream charity and scholarship program that we're launching. Like obviously there's all these teams, but like that's the way you've got to look at that to become more aware and be like, man, am I really leaving shit better than I found it? So I'll leave with that, because once again, like to me, that really, really, really spoke to me and talked to me, because my pops would always talk about that, right? Man, leave things better than when you found them, right? And when you fuck things up, like do your best to make it right. Now, sometimes, you know, you can't make it right because it involves somebody else, and that person is like, man, I'm not even gonna allow you to make it right. I don't care. But you have to make that, like, it has to be important to you, right? It shouldn't matter what another person does. And what I mean by that, like I'll finish off with this, right? When I joined Warrior, we would have, you know, we would send appreciation text every day, you know, love, honor, and appreciate. We'd use those 3 words. And I would text a good amount of people that I either haven't reached out in a long time, some people that, you know, I didn't do right by. And I kept doing it, because whenever I sent a text or sent an email or sent that note, it wasn't about them, right? It was about me. It was about me making sure that I do the right thing and I do what I feel is right, regardless of what the response is going to be, right? I can't control what they respond and how they feel and how they see things. All I can do is do right, you know what I mean, by what I feel and believe is right. And so, and with those actions, I was able to repair some relationships that, you know, some would deem unrepairable. At the same time, you know, some people never wanted that, or, you know, didn't acknowledge it, or whatever it may be, right? And I don't think about why or judge that or anything else. I just know that I do my part. And so that's, to me, that's what that means. Like, you know, if you break it, fix it, make it right, or do your absolute best and give your best effort to do that. And to me, that's also part of leaving the jersey in a better place, because we're not perfect. Like, nobody's perfect. You're going to fuck up, period. But like having this philosophy, it still allows you to go like, you know what, I messed up. I see that. I acknowledge that. So I'm going to do the best that I can and do my best to make it right. So I'll leave you with that. Like I said, 5 lessons from the All Blacks, a guide to being successful and we can call the field on the field, like at your work, in your business, you know, in sports, but off the field as well, as, like I said, being a great father, mother, brother, sister, friend, whatever it may be, right? It goes for everything. And so I'm not sure if this was a shorter one, but I certainly shared what I wanted to share that's been on my mind this past week, and something that I hope you found powerful and implement in your life and implement in your business. With that said, as always, guys, I love and appreciate you guys. Going to iTunes, sharing, leaving a comment, leaving a review, help spread the message, and it gets out to more people. And as you always know, like even the things that I said today, make sure you do something about it. And, you know, maybe it's putting a card in your, or something in your journal that you can look at every day, putting a reminder about how you're going to treat people. Maybe something that I said, you're like, man, like I need to do more of that. Or like, but make it specific. Like, don't let it be something in the ether. Make it specific. Like, what are you going to do from what you learned today that's going to move you forward and make you a better leader from these 5 lessons? Like, what's one specific thing? You don't have to do a lot. Like, just what's one thing? But just do it. That's it. That's all I ask of you. It's like, just do that. 52 weeks. If we do 52 podcasts, you take 52 actionable steps, you will be a different human being by next year, period. With that said, love and appreciate you. Coach Luka. I'll see you in the next episode of Big Life Podcast.